Of a series of reports highlighting Black History Month in Utah, we look at the college graduation rates of black students. Men, by the way, make up just 34%.
So that means women make up the other 66%. ABC4 Utah's Nadia introduces us to a relatively new scholarship program that encourages black men to apply and seek higher education.
Well, scholars have long since debated the reasons why black males are falling behind in obtaining college-level degrees. There's the legacy of men being breadwinners, getting jobs, and not going to school, and the disparity of black males being incarcerated for harsher penalties. And there's the overall cloud of racism hindering all of those efforts. Well, that's why Reverend France A. Davis started that scholarship program, so that he can help those males and women receive their college degrees despite those obstacles.
I came to Salt Lake and was wearing my old gray suit with my colored shirts and wearing my hairdo.
An afro on the head of a young Reverend France A. Davis back in 1974, not too long after graduating from UC Berkeley. Fast forward 40 years later, University of Utah student Keith McDonald works to obtain his bachelor's degrees in social work.
The image of us being athletes, being entertainers, being, in undesirable areas of society is put out there more.
But McDonald works in a different image, the one of an educated black man, of a role model for his 8-year-old son, Amar.
How many beans were in all?
But for Amar's success, we must go back to the days when Reverend Davis worked for his education. Davis says his parents encouraged him to do better than they had, graduate from college.
The two motivations was a positive one from my parents and the negative one which says no use even trying from others in the community.
Davis left college to march with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the Civil Rights Movement, but he went back and picked up a few degrees. He's best known as the pastor of Calvary Baptist Church in Salt Lake. And with education at the forefront, 4 years ago, Pastor Davis created a scholarship program for minority students.
We have at least one student on all of the public colleges and universities in the state of Utah.
It started with just 2 students, and now there are 29. You can see some of those students marching together on MLK Day. Reverend Davis passes on a message these students soak up.
We're being educated so that we can pass it on to future generations and so that we can help and inspire others.
Bethany Cherry attends BYU and looks to the scholarship group for more than just financial assistance.
There are a lot of stereotypes that you come across every single day. I'm talking students, professors, even sometimes friends who just don't understand.
But in the group, Bethany sees faces who look like hers, all working together toward a common goal with a greater significance for those coming after them.
When you're blessed with opportunities, you take them and you help others as well.
And the goal for this year is to help out her male counterparts. Black men go to college half as often as black women. Keith McDonald was that statistic, dropping out of The Ohio State University, joining the military, getting married, and then having a son.
It would be being a father. I didn't have any responsibilities back then, I could just fly by the seat of my pants, do whatever I wanted to do. Now I kind of have to structure my life.
Now, McDonald is back in school and working to provide a good example for Amar.
And then what's the other number you need to write right there?
McDonald doesn't know why the numbers for black male graduates are so low, but he says there's no excuse, especially with the scholarship group behind him.
They set me up with a mentor. We have monthly meetings. The executive board check on, what I need every semester. They're a part of your life.
And not just for the students, but the Utah schools who benefit from having these students walk the halls, sit in the classrooms, and become part of the campus community.
The institutions are better institutions because, and when they have people of color and a diversity of students.
The application is online. It asks about your extracurricular activities, your community service, and you don't have to be a straight A student to apply. Just have African descent and show potential. We've posted a link to this site on our website at 4utah.com. Reporting from Salt Lake, Nadia, ABC4 Utah.
As we continue our Black History Month coverage, we look at a growing group within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The Genesis group is largely made up of black members who are seeking answers for before and after the priesthood revelation. ABC4 Utah's Nadia joins us live from the Salt Lake Temple with more on that group. Nadia.
Well, Kim, this temple behind me, the Salt Lake Temple, represents a lot of pain and frustration for some black members of the LDS Church. Now, prior to the priesthood revelation of 1978, blacks could not enter this building to be endowed or be called to serve on a mission. Now, blacks can receive the priesthood, but that stigma and legacy of discrimination within the church still remains. The latest Genesis group meeting acts as a support group for black members in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The sacrament, meet and greet, praise song, speaker, and testimony make up the normal agenda.
It meant something to me for my children and other children to see black leadership.
Black leaders in a church with a checkered past when it comes to race.
And at times the Lamanites have a dark skin and are out of favor with God. So I said, pointing at my hand, I remember doing that, how, if in any way, does that relate to me?
That's the question Darius Gray asked Mormon missionaries almost 50 years ago. His answer came from above.
I heard very clearly, this is the restored gospel, and you are to join.
And with that, Gray was baptized into the LDS Church in 1964. That's despite knowing the priesthood was denied to him and all blacks. Gray only lasted 1 year at Brigham Young University, one of 2 blacks in a student body of more than 20,000. He says it's because of racism.
There was no sense of freedom, and there was very little sense of belonging. I was the odd man out.
On June 8, 1978, Gray heard the news he had been waiting for, the priesthood revelation.
He and I just greeted each other and we cried. And from his office we overlooked the Salt Lake Temple, looking out knowing that everything had changed. Not just looking forward, but looking back.
The moment that paved the way for new members like Don and Jaree Hardwell.
They thought I was the first black sister to go out on a mission. I was second or third among the first.
Jaree went on a mission in 1980. Don was baptized into the church in 83. But even years after the revelation, Don says they didn't completely feel welcomed.
Everybody thinks you can go to your ward and everything is going to be just hunky-dory, and it wasn't that way at all.
It's the same reason why Gray and 2 others worked with 3 junior apostles to create the Genesis group in 1971.
We've had the legacy of those past attitudes. We've had the scaffolding, everything that was built up to support denying priesthood to blacks. Statements that in the pre-existent life, blacks had been less valiant than whites, or that they had been fence sitters.
So Genesis started in 71, began to grow, and then faded away after the priesthood revelation. Don Harwell felt the need to bring it back with his wife Jaree on board in 1996.
And why don't we start a newsletter? And we can send it out to people, let them know what's going on.
This newsletter helped reach out to blacks across Utah who found themselves alone. But Genesis quickly became multicultural.
A lot of white families adopted black kids and had no black culture except for Genesis.
You can see in these pictures the white and brown faces in the primary classes held by the Genesis group. From what started as just 6 people in '96, can now boast more than 400 members at any given meeting.
People that look like them, that were accepting, that shared the same religion.
In December of last year, the LDS Church issued a statement on its website denouncing racism of all kinds. Some black Mormons want a formal apology, but the grandfather of the Genesis group says those words are meaningless without feeling and actions from current members.
The important thing is that there be a change of heart, that people need to respond differently to those who are different, that we need to see persons of color as truly our brothers and sisters.
Now, you can attend those Genesis meetings regardless of your race. It's the first Sunday of every month, and there are Genesis-like groups across the nation. We posted all those details on our website at 4utah.com. Reporting live from Salt Lake City, Nadia Crow, ABC4 Utah.
All right, Nadia, thank you.
After 17-year-old Trayvon Martin was shot and killed in Florida, racial profiling was thrust back into the national spotlight. The question became, does being African American make someone more likely to be accused of committing a crime?
As we continue our Black History Month series, we ask if racial profiling is an issue here in Utah. ABC4 Utah's Nadia has the special report.
We spoke with a lot of experts who say that's a pretty difficult question to answer. Last year, the hoodie, like this one, became a symbol of racial profiling. We wanted to know if skin color means a higher level of suspicion. So we take you on a trip, a night in the life of a young black male. We try to uncover if his experiences are any different because of his race. This is 21-year-old Paris Neal London walking in a Draper neighborhood. A few years back, a trip home from Alta High School nearly landed him behind bars.
And so he pulled over, got my name, and seen I wasn't really doing anything. I told him I was on my way home, and he was just like, all right, you're good to go.
Paris says it's one of many racially charged incidents he remembers happening in Utah after moving from Illinois back in 2006. His mother, Pregina London, also remembers them well.
Someone had a Ku Klux Klan sheet at a pep rally. A guy on the football team, a guy held a noose, rope, on the bus. It was just really sad.
So before Paris graduated, his mother called a meeting with school staff and other parents, but she says it didn't help.
I think it's ignorance. I think they need to be more educated.
With all of these stories, we wanted to know if the same kind of incidents would happen in 2014. So we set up a social experiment.
So you'll walk in front of us.
Okay.
Just like how you normally would, and then I'll be behind you with this camera.
A hidden camera on Paris and another one on me. Sure enough, Paris's prediction came true.
A lot of doors being locked, a lot of looks.
Check out this one. You can see Paris walking, and on the left side of your screen, a woman with a stroller. Now freeze. She stops and looks at Paris and then looks back at her child walking behind her. Was she just being a careful mother, or did she feel threatened by a black man's approach? It's the question that makes the racial profiling debate so hard to judge. Here's another instance of what Paris calls getting a look as he heads into a store. But the Londons say they don't want to pull the race card every time something not quite right happens to them.
You don't want to bring the color issue in, because you think we're past that. You don't want to bring, I don't.
But this nation's long history of racial tension that sometimes erupted to violence still remains. Just recently, the Trayvon Martin case brought racial profiling back to the forefront. His saggy pants and hoodie were called into question. Some argued his clothing made him look suspicious or like a threat.
The saggy pants seems to be pretty prevalent, and the hoodies are omnipresent and have been forever.
Rick Rasmussen heads the Police Civilian Review Board of Salt Lake City. If there's a case of racial profiling, it gets sent to Rasmussen's desk.
People are targeting or giving additional attention to people based on factors other than their actions. It could be racially based or gender based or sexual identity, something like that.
Rasmussen says city police officers are taught to look for suspicious activity or people who look out of place. So if Paris is walking in a predominantly white neighborhood, does that warrant a stop?
Well, they spend a great deal of time talking about policing based on actions, not policing based on appearances.
In the past 6 years, the board's reviewed 5 allegations of racial profiling. None of them found credible.
I think they exist more dramatically within the population as a whole rather than police officers who are trained to ensure that they're only looking for actions.
Rasmussen says training is key, and it's education that the Londons want as well. And that's why they say they're not moving. They hope the general population becomes more open-minded to diversity.
I told my kids that we're going to stay because we don't run from our problems. And I told them you're going to have this wherever you go. You make the best out of it.
Rick Rasmussen says there is one instance when police officers are taught to look at appearance versus actions. He says it's when it's gang-related. So if an officer sees someone with a green bandana or a red bandana hanging out a particular pocket, they may believe that that person is gang-affiliated. Now, the Londons say they do believe that things will get better here in Utah for them and for other minorities as diversity becomes more acceptable in the state. Reporting from Salt Lake City, Nadia, ABC4 Utah.